Good morning, everyone. This is the 63rd Coffee with Commissioner event. It's 6:30 a.m. We've got a great show lined up, and we got some special guests here this morning. So first and foremost, we'll get started. And first, I want to welcome Sheriff Chip Simmons aboard. Good morning, Sheriff. Thank you for being here, sir.
Good morning, Commissioner. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. We also have from the Sheriff's Office, Commander Andrew Hobbs. Thank you, sir, for being here this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And then, of course, we've got our interim county administrator, Wes Marino, is here this morning. Good morning, Wes.
Good morning, Commissioner.
And then, of course, Eric Gilmore, our public safety director, been working hard, lots of fires burning, pardon the pun, but we appreciate what he's doing. And I just want to say for the record, Eric, you've just been killing it out there, and we appreciate all the work you're doing. You're wearing two hats. You're doing the emergency management, plus you're our acting public safety director. And I've said publicly, and I've said this to you, I certainly hope you'll consider taking this job permanently, because I think you've done a great job. You understand all sides of it. And I'm just excited to have you aboard. So with all that, we'll go ahead and get started. What we typically do is we go to the administrator first. We get an update on important county business that's happening, things that might have slipped and flown under the news radar. So Wes, good morning. Any updates from the county?
Well, we've had a lot of things going on. Of course, this coming Saturday, we have our 200th anniversary coming up. It's going to be a big celebration there at Museum Park. We're coming off of Blue Angels weekend, which was a huge success.
Yes,
it
was.
A great effort by Lee Davis and Robbie Schrock, all of our first responders, the Sheriff's Department, EMS, fire, and of course, I can't overlook our public works. That's where my heart is. Those guys really have been killing it the past couple of weekends, coming off the July 4th weekend, right into the Blues weekend. And, they're short staffed like everybody else, but they've really been rocking it and doing a great job. You guys approved an increase in pay for the EMS and paramedics. That was a huge thing, a very beneficial thing to help us recruit and retain. And also in fire, we've got our fire cadet program going on where we bring in non-certified firefighters, if you will, and we pay for them to get certified in both fire and EMS as they come out. They'll be fully certified in both. And we just have a lot of projects going on all over the county. You got the Bellevue Library that's up and running and going.
Right.
You got a lot of making progress on Longleaf. We just got a lot of good things going on in Escambia County that sometimes don't get recognized, but there is a lot. Our employees are doing a fantastic job of stepping up to the plate, even though they're short staffed. They're just doing a great job.
Hey, Wes, I was going to ask, do we have any preliminary numbers? I was out at the beach a couple days last weekend, for all the festivities, and was there Friday for the Blues reception, which was fantastic, by the way. Hats off to Innisfree Hotels, Julie McQueen, and all the folks that organized that. That was an amazing event. I saw the sheriff made an appearance out there. I got to see him, and just was fantastic. We love the Blue Angels. This is a great event every year. But I was wondering, did we have any preliminary numbers? I had heard anecdotally that our numbers were way down. I to me.
Yeah, on Saturday we had about 17,000, a little over 17,000 cars come through the toll booth.
Mm-hmm.
A little less than what was anticipated. I know a couple of weekends ago we had roughly 22,000 cars come through the toll booth. So it was
Now,
a little
what
bit
do we?
less. I'm sorry.
What do we attribute that to? Does that mean a lot of folks were already staged out there in their condo?
I think a lot of folks were staged out there, and there were a lot of folks came by boat.
Yeah, that's enough.
So I think that had something to do with it as well.
Do we don't count the boats?
No, we don't count
The pass.
And one other piece of information I got, I think you guys should have an email this morning. We get our first trickle of reimbursement for FEMA is on the way.
Yes, I saw that.
60 grand. So we're hoping that kind of opens the gate, if you will.
Now, how much was it again, Wes? Say that again.
It's about 60 grand. It's 59 and some change. But hey, we'll go take it, right?
We'll take every bit of it. But boy, how much do they owe us altogether? Like 70 million?
Yeah, that's a large number.
And I want to give a shout out to Elizabeth Kissel from our office. I mean, she's an amazing worker. She's the one that kind of herds the cats. She's the one that gets all the staff members organized with their receipts and all the documentation necessary to get the reimbursements, and just does a great job. And I'll just point out, it's not her job to do it, but we were short at the desk out front of the commissioner's office last Thursday. And as I was walking up, we typically have, other people doing it,
Right.
not someone of her level. And I said, what are you doing here? She goes, well, they needed the help. So I just want to point out, they don't get recognized enough. The staff members that work in this organization, that go above and beyond like her, they never get recognized enough. So I just want to thank her for the job that she does.
She really does a fantastic job. She really does. She is She has just been a wealth of energy and a wealth of knowledge. She's come up to speed very quick, and she is tracking these FEMA dollars. And she's a yeoman's job, really. She's really doing great.
Well, fantastic. Well, Wes, I appreciate that update, and I'm going to throw it down to you now, Eric. I know there's been a lot going on in public safety, as Wes intimated. You know, we got the EMS raises going, we got the Fire Cadet Academy. Talk to me a little bit about what else has happened in public safety, and then I have some questions about COVID.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, yeah, the public safety's kicking. We're getting, we're moving down the road. We are working with the cadets to get those guys onboarded, and then we do have a fire academy that's starting at Georgetown. I think the second week of August, I do believe. So we're hoping to get our cadets in there and start their fire training as soon as they get on board with us. We're working out an agreement with Georgetown right now. We've got a truck that we've classified as a training truck. That's not a good first line apparatus for us. So we're going to transfer that truck to Georgetown for those seats. So we're going to exchange equipment for the seats for the guys, so we don't pay for training. So
Nice.
we're working that out. So with the guys over there, we will be bringing forward 3 apparatus purchases: a fire engine, a ladder truck, and a squad truck. Pretty soon to the board for approval of purchase, and we get 3 new additional fire apparatus starting to be built. It's going to take about a year to build those out because everybody's delayed, of course. So EMS, those guys are doing a fantastic job. We got Dave Torcell here. Hit the ground running with the crew, and we got the guys out in the field, and he's really on top of things as far as administratively and holding calls and making sure that we're doing the right thing and getting the right resources to the right places. And overall, public safety as a whole, I mean, we're communicating better with dispatch, EMS, fire, lifeguards, emergency management. We're communicating much more efficiently. We're having meetings to discuss how can we get things better, how can we streamline. We got our new fire chief, Jason Trambone. He's driving back from North Dakota this week. He's bringing his family down, closed on his house. So he's permanently a fixture in the community as well. So when Jason gets back, looking forward to having a conversation with him and what he's seen so far and where we need to go and how we need to get there. So we get some things lined out. But no, a lot of positive things happening in public safety, a lot of good things going on. And the people here have stepped up and want to get things back on track, get things better, be the benchmark organization we should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, my hat's off to you and all the energy you put into everything and the hard work you do. I know that you're a volunteer firefighter yourself. So when you're not working your 2 jobs here with the county, you're doing that and running calls. So just my hat's off to you. God bless people like you that volunteer your time and go out there and do it. I would like to next month for my coffee have you and Chief Catrambone on the show. Like you and I talked the other night, I have some specific ideas. I'm really wanting to get the fire side of our union negotiations behind us. I have some ideas, that I think that, and obviously we're in bargaining, so I'm not going to really go into it in too much detail, but hopefully between now and our next coffee with the commissioner, you and I can talk offline. I've got 4 specific things that I'd like to put forward that I think can help with the funding, help with the retention, certainly help starting pay, and but it's going to require some give on both sides. It can't be, here's what I want you to have. You shove it down your throat, you eat it. No, it doesn't work that way. Give and take. So I'm looking forward to that next month. Hopefully you'll be available to do that, and we'll get the chief in and he'll be settled in enough to do that. I want to shift gears to COVID. Every night on the national news, we see David Muir looking very, very serious, and he talks about an outbreak in some area far away from here. And then at the end of the 1-minute piece, they throw in the national number of infections. They really confuse a lot of people. They stir it up. They keep people worried. So folks here are worried. I spoke to the president of a local hospital, and he said, we're seeing a slight uptick, but he goes, it's very manageable. It's in the single digits. He said, our hospitalizations are nowhere close to where they were earlier this year. But the positivity rate has gone up a little bit. So can you speak to that and tell the citizens, what is the real story here? They get mixed messages. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance going on.
Right.
What's the real deal, Eric?
So to be honest with you, we had a meeting with our hospital partners Monday. Anytime we see an uptick, we'll pull everybody together. We'll have that discussion. We'll look at around us, what's happening around us. And as far as, what's happening in the hospitals, there's sister agencies in South Florida, north of us. And we are having a slight uptick. So we was around 4% positivity rate in Escambia County a couple of weeks ago. And we're anywhere from 8 to 10% right now. So we have seen a small uptick. As far as hospitalization rates, we were in the single digits. So when you say that we've doubled, we might have had 2 people in there. Now we have 4. So I mean, yeah, we've doubled. You could say that, you know, it's a play on words, but is it a sense of urgency? No, it's not. The hospital said what we have here is very manageable. They are seeing a slight uptick. Majority of the people who are in the hospital are not vaccinated. So that speaks to the vaccination. The next question was, is it the Delta variant? And we don't know that answer because we've asked the state, are they sequencing the Delta variant and are they trying to identify where it's at and where we're having problems at? And they didn't give us a clear definitive answer. So I don't have an answer on that. So we don't know if it's the Delta variant, if it's the regular COVID-19, but we are seeing a small uptick in the community. And as I said, the people that we're seeing, they're not vaccinated. You know, we're at 42% as of last week in Escambia County as far as our vaccination rate with 12 and older. So, you know, that's 117,000 people out of 300, you know, 20,000 people roughly in Escambia County. So we need to, you know, vaccine, you know, it's your personal choice.
Correct.
Most definitely, but it does work. It is working out there and we're not seeing the infection rates or the people in the hospitals who are vaccinated. So it speaks to the vaccine, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, and just perusing our site once again today, and I would tell everyone, you know, who sees this either on our YouTube site or on Facebook or wherever they might see it, just go to myescambia.com. At the very top, there's a red ribbon. Click it. You have all the resources that you need. Every location where you can get a free COVID vaccine. You know, a lot of people are down on our country. They like to run us down. I was watching, you know, the chaos in Haiti the other day, and I was thinking to myself, the poorest of the poorest communities in the United States of America have, you know, great schools that are stocked with books, technology. Everyone has access to a free vaccine. I was astonished when I heard that not one dose of vaccine has been given out in a country like Haiti. Now, we know Haiti's a train wreck ever since the earthquake, but, you know, America is a great country. We worked hard. We're the leaders in the world. We got this vaccine out. And, you know, so anyone that wants to be down on America obviously ain't paying attention to what goes on in the rest of the world, because we're very, very fortunate here. And so back to that vaccine, what you were talking about, Eric, the gentleman I spoke with said, you know, it's only the people that haven't been vaccinated that he sees dying in his hospital. And, you know, the deaths have trailed off as well. But, you know, the 42% number, that's another thing. You know, we're here in other states, New York, California have 70%. So 42% in Escambia. But what I'd like to know, and you might have this number, what is the number of people over age 50, people my age and older, who have it? Because I think that's really the critical, isn't that a critical demographic of people who are at risk of dying for the most part? And do we have that number disaggregated?
I do not have it in front of me. I'm sure it's out there and I can get it to you.
Yeah,
But I got to go through the DOH. I got to go through the DOH raw data and break it all down. They've stopped doing the good dashboards that you know, our dashboard was linked to their dashboard and
it was really good.
Our numbers, and it was really good. They stopped doing that. So I've got to go through aggregated data and start pulling numbers, and I can get that number for you, Doug. I will get that for you.
Well, I appreciate it. And again, thank you for all you did. You know, Eric, through the last year, we were the first and the only ones who did a very important statistic that I pushed for, which was the recovered number. You know, everyone wanted to scare you with this big top line number. Look at the number of infections when 98 or 99% of people recovered. You know, I'm not a COVID denier. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I'm a realist, and data doesn't lie. And I appreciated the fact that we were the only ones that did that. And I know a lot of other people did. I had people call me about it, react to it. It's reassuring to know that, you know, even if you've got, you know, 80,000, you know, people that have contracted it or tested positive, you know, 78,000 of them recovered, you know, and that's just an important data point that I think was missing from a lot of state sites and other places. So thank you for doing that. All right. Here we go. Sheriff Chip Simmons, thank you so much for being here. Good morning. Welcome aboard. Commander Hobbs, thank you, sir, for being here. And, you know, you're an elected official now. You've been in law enforcement for many, many years. This is your first elected office. So I just want to ask, what was your experience like? I mean, all those of us who run for office, it's kind of an odd thing. I know you had a strong team behind you. How was the campaign and what was your thoughts on that?
Thanks, Jeff. You know, I really feel like I should kind of say something about Wes and Eric. You know, a lot of times you read about things that, you know, no one talks to each other, no one works together. That's not true. I worked with Wes when I was at the county. I've known Wes for many years. I look forward to working with Wes. I think the county is going to go forward, and we're going to continue to have a very cooperative, very good working relationship. You know, I consider Wes a friend of mine. Eric was at the beach. We were out there together. I have all the confidence in the world in Eric, and I know that Andy, talking to Andy a lot, he's known Eric for a long time. So I think the county is doing good by employing these type of people. And I really look forward to it. I think things are going to go, a lot better at Escambia County. And I appreciate that. I appreciate them. And I certainly appreciate the future with working with both of them. So
Well, thank you for the kind words on.
Chip, I do appreciate
That's very
that.
nice.
Thank you. I'll be looking for you at the Egg Fest, by the way.
there you go. I'll be there. We'll be there. Jeff, you talked about the campaign. I think that a lot of people, when they first run for office, they don't realize how much it's going to take, how many times you're going to talk and say the same message. And then you go to neighborhoods, which is, I'm not saying it's bad. It's just a lot of work, and you learn a lot. You learn a lot about what you should be doing if you're not doing it. And you learn a lot about what people expect from their elected officials. I think it's been 6 months now since I've been in office, and I had been the chief deputy for 4 years. I worked for the county for almost 2 years. I've been at the police department for 30 years. I was police chief for a long time. So the job of being a police officer and being a supervisor, being a chief executive of an agency, that was okay. That I'm familiar with. It's just the other stuff that comes with that, the sheer volume of work that you have to have. And that's why you surround yourself with good people. You talked about, and we had discussed about having a fire chief on board, an EMS chief on board. We have, Eric and Wes on board. I think that, and I have Commander Hobbs, and I brought in Chief Leiter to be my chief deputy. As many know, he was the chief of police for many years at the Pensacola Police Department. So I think if you surround yourself with talent, you surround yourself with people like-minded, everyone around me in my command staff now, they know the expectations that I have, and we continue to just reinforce those expectations. We have some core values that I had at the police department that I brought over to the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, and it's the courtesy, integrity, and professionalism. And if you don't abide by those that set of standards, then there will be some sort of ramification. But I think that by and large, the Escambia County Sheriff's Office is doing a great job. We have a lot of things that we've pushed out. You talked about campaign. I think I talked about two different things. One was enforcement as the number one priority, and then the next one was engagement. I think that violent crime is still our top priority, and I wanted to make sure that we engaged with not just our county partners, but we engaged with our federal partners and our state partners. We didn't have any real relationship with our federal partners, with DEA and with ATF and FBI and other agencies. So I immediately started those to build those relationships back up. I know because I spent a lot of my career in narcotics, and I was involved in a number of narcotic task forces with DEA, with the FBI, the Marshal Service, and I know the value of that. We don't need to do this alone. We can have these partnerships, so we can use the resources that the federal agencies bring to us and help us with the drug traffickers and with the violent crime, the gun crime that we've seen here, because we're very busy. And,
yes.
and I can say to the citizens of Escambia County that the Escambia County Sheriff's Office has a number of partnerships already in place. So I've signed the agreements, the MOUs, again, with the Marshal Service, DEA, FBI, and you're going to continue to see that relationship, those relationships build with regards to the enforcement side of things. And then when you look at where we're going on engagement, I know Commander Hobbs is here, but we're doing just a number of different things. We're out there in the community quite a bit. The body cameras, and I don't want to miss the body cameras. I went to the Board of County Commissioners in January. I was a sheriff for 2 weeks, I believe. And I came to you and I said, hey, this is important. It's not just important to the sheriff's office. This is important to the community. We're the largest agency from here to Jacksonville. And the fact that we do not have body cameras was just dumbfounding to me. And the Board of County Commissioners approved $900,000 plus. And for us to get about 300 body cameras, we are currently at about 80 body cameras, but we have one shift going online every week. Colonel Jeremy Small is in charge of that, and he's doing a great job getting the body cameras out. And as you alluded to, fortunately, we had body cameras under a recent officer-involved shooting where we had a murderer come from Okaloosa County, go through Walton County, and sure enough, they end up in Escambia County like they always seem to end up here. but it didn't go well for him. He come out with a gun. You say you didn't see the video, but there's a short snippet of that video that we put out because I want people to know that sometimes we get to a call, we don't have time to put our car in park before the bullets are coming our way, and sometimes people don't believe me, but that is very much the truth. We've had unfortunately we've had a couple of deputies shot at. We've had a couple of deputies actually shot over the last couple of years, and I think that that's indicative of the job that we do.
I was going to ask you, a lot of citizens say, you should never shoot to kill. You should shoot them in the leg or this garbage. I think when someone jumps out of a car and starts shooting, you got to take them out. But what would you say to some of these folks that say, well, you shouldn't use deadly force. Why'd you kill him? Why'd you kill him? You should have. What do you say to people like that?
Well, any death is tragic. Well, I understand that, and we only use the force that's reasonable. That is one of our number one priorities, obviously, and that's how we train. But and that's why we put the video out, because this deputy, while we were all sleeping probably, this deputy's out there. He knows that there's a murder suspect. He knows that he's armed and dangerous. He knows he's got the right car. The two deputies actually get out, try to stop this car. And before he can put the car in park, this killer has shot at least 5 rounds on his way to shooting 10 rounds at us. One of the rounds goes through one of our cruiser car doors. And for anyone to think that a deputy can do anything but fire as many rounds as he can at the aggressor, at the person that's trying to kill him, is ridiculous. And anyone that thinks you can shoot to wound in that situation has never been in law enforcement, and certainly never been in situations like that, likely never been in the military where they would have that type of experience. And the people that would criticize the deputies for doing the job that they did, I take that with a grain of salt, because these are likely people that have never done the job, and they would probably wet themselves at the mere thought of it.
Yeah, they would. That's funny. What a great answer. Well, getting back to the drug thing though, would you say that is my brother's a judge. He and I talk quite a bit. He sees a lot of the stuff that happens in the community, and he sees the fallout and when people have to appear before him. But he tells me drugs are a huge problem and really the root cause of a lot of the violence that we see. In your experience, is that true? Do you think the drugs, illegal drugs in the community is one of the bigger problems that create this violence that we're seeing?
I think so. I think that violent crime or gun crime is the number one problem here in Escambia County. But the root of that is almost always drug trafficking. It is meth, it is opioids, it is all this type of stuff, because with drugs come money. And many times when we report a homicide or a gun incident, we almost always will have to say that it's drug related. Now, that's not the case with the Clarity shooting that we had recently. We'll get to that later on, but that is certainly the case in almost every violent crime that we have. I understand that, again, from my drug background, but also our investigators will tell you that there's almost always drugs found in a car. There's a couple of things we find in almost every homicide scene. That's a gun, guns and drugs. We almost always find those in the cars. And that's where we start our investigation when we have that type of a lead up.
I was speaking to the medical examiner about the tremendous increase in deaths in our area. And she said, she pointed to an astonishing statistic, and it might not be surprising to you guys since you deal with these situations all the time. But she said our local drug overdoses have gone up by 60% in the first 6 months of 2020. And I was just wondering, she also said that they're cutting methamphetamine with fentanyl. So 2-part question: fentanyl, extremely powerful, very dangerous to your officers. I'm assuming you have PPE that you always wear and strategies that you employ to keep your men safe. But have you seen that as well? Have you responded to a lot more overdoses?
Yeah, we have. I think that people would be shocked at the number of overdoses, whether they're fatalities or not, that our EMS crews, our fire crews, and certainly our deputies will respond to. I'm reminded a couple of years ago, Senator Rubio came here to talk about the opioid crisis, and a representative from EMS, and Eric can probably tell if this is still accurate or not. But the question was, what is the average age of a transport for overdose? And at the time, it was like 51 years old. So what was crazy, I find out astonishing, because it wasn't just your 20-year-old, that you would envision. These are people that have addictions, and these are people that are overdosing, people that are our age. And so I
Wow.
think that what that tells you is it's not just a 20-something epidemic. It's not just a 30-something epidemic. It is an epidemic throughout the age, throughout the age categories. And again, Eric can probably fill us in. Even if it's in the 40s now, that still gives you an idea of why it's such a big deal, because it's not just hitting one demographic. It is hitting our entire community because people are getting addicted to this stuff, and then they're overdoing it. And then the people that are desperate enough to get it illegally, then they will mix fentanyl with it. And fentanyl, as you know, is a very deadly drug.
Yes, it is. Eric, you're seeing what the sheriff is talking about, older folks being transported by our ambulances?
It is a wide range. As he said, it is not just one group or demographic like the younger generation or 20s and 30s. It is a wide demographic, and it does go up into the 50s. He's absolutely right. So it's just
That's amazing to me. I mean, I one of the things that I've heard, my brother does the drug or he does the Veterans Treatment Court, and a lot of folks end up on heavy pain meds if they come back from the war or have other these sorts of injuries. And because of some of the laws enacted at the federal level, it constricts the amount of supply that they can get. And when they run low, oftentimes, that's what feeds their addiction. They go into street drug, whatever they can get to relieve the pain. And, he said with some tragic results, but I assume your guys in their cars have the Narcan, and how often do you guys have to employ the Narcan to save people?
Well, we do not have Narcan in our cars. I know
No.
EMS, I think firefighters have the Narcan as well. I'm actually looking at that. We discussed that as a command staff just about 2 weeks ago, Andy. And,
Wow.
and the question is whether we have that. We have Narcan available for our crime scene folks, our evidence folks, and for our canines, because obviously they can run into an issue with that. But we do not yet. That's some of the things that we have on the horizon at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. I know that, in fact, I've reached out to Orange County. They have it. They have a little program, a little quick training program, and it's something that we're looking at doing. But again, we've not yet got that to every one of our cruise cars.
Well, I'll just make a quick plug here. Then, we have the Health and Hope Clinic here locally. It's the only free health clinic in a 4-county area that has Narcan. They give it out for free. I have one in my glove box. I got one at my house. I got one in my truck, and one in my office. I keep it with me, and I can get you doses for free. It's like nasal spray, and if you'd like it, I can certainly make sure that you have those instantaneously. That's kind of shocking to me, Sheriff, that y'all, because oftentimes you guys will be there probably first and beat the ambulance there. So
I know that Commander Hobbs and I were actually a year or two ago, we're at a traffic crash, and the traffic crash was a result of
an overdose.
And luckily it was right there on W Street, right outside of the EOC. So while we did what we could, we had to wait until the EMS crew got there, and they did a wonderful job, obviously, in bringing this guy back, reviving him. And so it's certainly something that we're heading towards, and I'll probably be in contact with you and try to get a feel for where we can get that stuff. We just want to get the training done first. I've only been off for 6 months, so we're getting to as many things as we possibly can.
No, you guys are doing great. Hey, I have a question from the internet. It's for Commander, Sheriff, and Wes. Some folks expressed concerns over the lack of crosswalks on the beach. Would crossings help with the pedestrian accidents? And is this on the radar for road improvements, and how would we fund it? So that's kind of a broad ranging question. Wes, do you want to take a crack at that?
We have our traffic division that has actually done a study, a plan, if you will, for crosswalks on the beach. And there's lighted crosswalks. There's ones where you push the button and the traffic light. That's probably the safest crosswalk that we see out there. What happens on the beach a lot of times is you always hear the pedestrian has the right of way. So sometimes they'll just take off.
Yeah.
And not everybody stops. Unfortunately, but it is an issue out there on the beach, and it is something that we are studying, looking into. Christine Fanchi has a plan, and she's been working with Commissioner Bender and been working with some of the residents out there, citizens out there, to improve the crosswalk situation out there. So there are several options.
Sheriff Simmons, I know you all have that substation out there. Anything from an infrastructure standpoint that would help you guys do your job out there? Sidewalks in particular, crosswalks?
Well, it's easy as a law enforcement professional when we get questions about about lowering speed limits or crosswalks or more lighting? Because the answer is yes. If you ask me if more crosswalks would improve safety, the answer is yes. I mean, but how much is enough, and where do you stop? If you ask me about reducing speed, the answer is yes. I mean, if you have every speed limit is 10 miles per hour, our fatalities will probably go down tremendously if we have any at all. But that's not reasonable. It's not practical. And then again, with street lighting, I said, well, will street lighting help with crime? The answer is yes. I'd like a street light in every other house. The problem, though, is that we can't afford all of that, and there has to be a free flow of traffic. So I think that we would rely on the experts like Wes and the engineers that are working on that stuff. If there's a situation where we're having trouble getting out to respond to emergency situation, we'll be glad to mention that to Wes or Eric, whoever needs to know the information. But I think more street walkways would probably benefit us. I think it's just an educational thing, letting people know this is where, and funneling people to certain areas. This is where you cross. And ultimately, I mean, we don't want to sit there and write tickets to everybody, but ultimately, if that's what it takes, then we will get there and we'll enforce whatever we need to do. So I think it's education. I think it's just smart management, as Wes was talking about, and then just having the money to go ahead and fund those sorts of things.
Interesting. I got another question. This is kind of a question for you, Sheriff, and for Wes. It's about the code enforcement law that took effect in July. It doesn't allow anonymous complaints. Is this something that's going to hinder the reporting? I think it's actually going to increase the reporting. And sometimes these code issues lead to uncovering crimes. Is that a concern to you, Sheriff, that if folks are going to be maybe reticent to call these in, that could reduce the number of tips that lead to arrests from your office?
I don't know that it's a concern for me. I think people will still call the sheriff's office. We get calls before they call code enforcement, and we educate them a lot of times on what is a code enforcement issue and the best route for them to take. So I think that they can go the code enforcement route, or they can go, through Crime Stoppers if they have information on a particular crime that's involved in a household. But we also have our neighborhood specialists now that they can go through the community services division, which Commander Hobbs runs. We have actually increased our availability. It's not just the sheriff that's available. Commander Hobbs is available. We have Ryan Rivera and we have Delarian Wiggins. They're both available. The entire code enforcement, community services unit and code enforcement are available to people. So I don't know that is a concern for me. Like you said, now we will at least have people, the name and contact information so that we can go back to them and say, this is what we have done. And that's part of what we're doing with our block by block, letting people know what they can do, what we can do. And then we have to sit down and have that conversation with them.
Well, that's a perfect segue to me to ask Commander Hobbs. First, Commander Hobbs, thanks for being here this morning. Appreciate what you do for the community and everything. Tell us a little bit about the outreach, the barbecues, the cookouts, and what you guys are doing with your outreach.
The best for last. Thank you. Yeah, the sheriff, when he was running for office, said he was going to do enforcement and engagement like we've never seen before. Well, that's my job, the engagement. So we're doing community barbecues. Those are going to start. We started a couple of them. We did a little bit at the precinct openings. We did the barbecues there to see how things would go, because you never just want to throw it out there and see. You want to test the waters a bit. And they've done extremely well. We'll start July 20th. We'll have one at Brownsville Center at 10 a.m. We're going to be doing a community barbecue there. We have one on July 31st. We have one on August 2nd, and then 7th, and then we have August 14th. We're coming to Beulah. We're bringing the party to Beulah, over there to the Beulah Park there on Mobile Highway, right beside the Equestrian Center.
Outstanding.
And when I say we bring a party, we are
brisket to Beulah, right?
Sir.
What's that?
You're bringing the Wagyu brisket to Beulah, right?
Oh, I'm not getting crazy. I mean, we're using.
Bring your own Wagyu.
Oh yeah, hold on. The sheriff will have me fired. I start throwing hamburgers like that around. But when I say we bring a party, we're going to bring horses. We'll bring dogs. We're going to bring Kona Ice. We're going to bring, officers, crime scene. They'll be doing fingerprinting. They'll be doing different arts and crafts. The sheriff will be there. SWAT will be there. Wow. It gives you the opportunity to see everything that we have and some, and it gives you a chance to talk to us. If you have concerns, our community liaison personnel will be there. We get a lot of information from the community. Talking about code enforcement, we deal with code enforcement a lot because a lot of the issues we see in community policing are not really directly law enforcement. Most of them are code enforcement issues, but we help code enforcement because sometimes those people don't want to be very polite to code enforcement. So we can we can send personnel with them. And that's where Ronnie Rivera and Delarian Wiggins come in. We're doing a lot of things with code enforcement right now. And, you know, honestly, before I got into the community policing side, I was not aware of how busy code enforcement is. Their work load is massive.
Yeah, it is. Those guys, those men and women, they do a really tough job. They go around, they're not armed. I mean, I don't believe they're not deputized. I mean,
no.
If someone gets aggressive with them, I mean, they got to rely on their wits because that's about all I think they carry pepper spray, right? Do they, Wes? I think they carry bear spray or something.
Yeah, they carry some spray. You know, code enforcement, it's a tough spot. Your interpersonal skills is what you rely on.
Right.
Working with the public and dealing with those difficult situations. And Tim Day's done a great job of bringing his group around. You know, he's increased the pay for them so we can retain people. So now we're not just training and seeing them leave. But if you can surround yourself, as Chip mentioned earlier, with good talent, people who know how to communicate and articulate well, with good interpersonal skills, that, you know, those are the type of individuals that we try to bring into code enforcement because it is a tough spot.
It's a tough job. So Commander Hobbs, you know, we recently, I think just at our last meeting, we funded we approved the request for the Law Enforcement Trust funding of $50,000 to the Sheriff's Foundation. Congratulations on that. I know a part of that, you had mentioned that there's an academy called the Blazer Academy. Tell us about that. What is the Blazer Academy?
You know, the Blazer Academy is really Sheriff Simmons' baby. So I'm going to let him. I don't want to steal his thunder because he has groomed this thing like a bonsai tree. He really has. I mean, we have talked about this quite a bit, but it's one of the opportunities we're having to reach out to the community in a different way, a more strategic way, where instead of a shotgun approach to things, we're doing it a little more surgical, where you can get a lot more bang for your buck and a lot more positive interaction and positive return from the money we're spending. So I'll let Sheriff Simmons explain the Blazer Academy.
All right, Sheriff.
You know, I think there's two different things. One is the foundation. The foundation is a 501c3 and it's designed to help the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, whether it is employee benefit. If a tragedy were to happen to a deputy, then they could provide assistance. But the second part of that is to help the Sheriff's Office in its engagement role. So the $50,000 that I requested through the Law Enforcement Trust Fund is to go to the foundation, to this 501c3 for the purchase of a video board. We talked about the barbecues, or really cookouts, because I don't think we're actually barbecuing, but we're going to cook hamburgers, hot dogs, and whatever. But we're also going to have a movie night. So the plan is, once we get this video board, we will take this, we will partner with the foundation, and we will go to neighborhoods that have not had this opportunity. So think for a second, there are a number of places that have videos, video nights out. They have one at the beach, they have one at the Wahoo Stadium, and they work out very well. You know, people go to those. But there are kids in certain neighborhoods that don't have access to that. They don't have a ride, they don't have an opportunity. Many times I'm not even aware of those things. So let's take Oakwood Terrace, for instance. A couple of months ago, we had an incident where 4 people were shot. Well, our plan is to take this video and to take our the people that can cook. We'll have a cookout there, and for 2 to 3 hours, the kids don't have to worry about a drive-by shooting because we're going to be there. The kids don't have to worry about anything but eating a hamburger, maybe French fries, potato chips, popcorn even, and they'll get to watch a video. And we will engage with that community. We'll engage with those children. And that's just like Andy talked about. That's, like we've never done before. And our plan is to continue to do this. That's why the foundation is trying to raise money for that video board itself, because we're not aware of any other agency, certainly around here, that has that resource and will allow us to partner with Escambia County, with the commissioners in each individual district. That's the plan. So part of this engagement that we're talking about, that leads me into the Blazer Academy. Over the last probably 20 years, I've been heavily involved in youth sports. I coached, for a number of years, and I realized that if you're really going to make a dent in this crime, you have to get these kids early. You have to have this interaction with them, this mentorship. We have a number of good groups, Big Brothers Big Sisters, a number of groups and mentor groups that try to help. But we have a unique situation at the sheriff's office where we have different life experiences. We have people that have been through a lot, and we have people that have overcome a lot, and we have people that can give them a firsthand look at what they're going to face as these young men become men. And so the Blazer Academy is just that. It's our way of, you funded that earlier with a $25,000 law enforcement trust fund request. So that's where the Blazer Academy comes from. The thought is to get a group of 13, 14, 15-year-old young men for this first year, and we will have a 4-session or a 4-week-long, once a week. So it's every Tuesday in August, and we will provide them with what they need to be young men. We'll tell them, what we see and how peer pressure can affect their life, and how we can talk to them about dating violence. We can talk to them about grooming habits. We can talk to them about how to shake hands, how to open doors, how to be polite young men, how to grow up and what their place is in society. And we can give them that from a position, from an environment that they do not get in a traditional educational environment or from a school. So, and we're also going to give them, provide them with a pair of pants and a blazer. That's why we call it the Blazer Academy.
Nice.
And the thought here is after 4 weeks, they will have a pretty good understanding of what their role is going to be in our society, and what their role is going to be as a man, as a family man, and as a husband, as a boyfriend. And I think that that's very important. And again, I think that the law enforcement setting that we're going to provide is unique to the Blazer Academy itself. And we'll also provide them with a gift, a small gift from the sheriff's office, something they can remember what took place, and hopefully we can build lasting relationships.
I think that's a great idea. That's fantastic. How are you going to recruit, Sheriff? Are you going to go into the schools, or how do you plan to recruit? I love the idea. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, what we're doing is the first one, we've gone to some of our, our partners that we know are working with our youth. And then we opened it up on our Facebook page, and people have requested to join. We also anticipate, I'm not sure if it's gone out yet, but we want to send an email to each of the county commissioners and asking if they would recommend one person that can come. It has to be a 13, 14, 15-year-old young man. And if they don't have to, you don't have to if you don't want to, but if you have one, please let us know. We're also going to reach out to the school board, members of the school board. We've been obviously inundated. We've had a very good response to this, as you can imagine. There are a number of parents that they realize, maybe single mothers that realize they may benefit from having this male role model, even if it's only for 4 one-night sessions. They understand the value of this. So that's how we're going to do it. And the plan is to have one this year and about 2 or 3 next year. And then next year, we're also going to open it up. We're going to have a Blazer Academy for young ladies as well. So we're not, we don't want to miss out on anybody, but we also want to make sure that we do it right, and we don't rush things because that's just the level of professionalism we have here at the sheriff's office.
Well, I think that sounds fantastic. I look forward to watching it, and whatever we can do from my office, whatever I can do to help support that. If there's anything we can do, just please don't hesitate to ask. I have a heart for kids. I was many years on the school board to kind of segue. It'll help me segue into this next question of you. What I saw when I was on that board for 10 years was the discipline in the schools, unfortunately, wasn't meted out equally. Certain kids were offered different kind of alternative behaviors based upon, maybe their upbringing or their lack of resources at the house or whatever the case might be. But I found that over time, these same students would rack up referrals after referrals. And I think they almost became conditioned that they would get a pass based upon this or that or whatever. And, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, as people know, my brother's a judge. And so, he sees a lot of these young men in his court, and he listens to them. He wants to help them wherever he can. He does. Unfortunately, a lot of them rotate out of school. And I think a lot of them have the mentality that they can just do what they want, and it'll be just like at school. They bullied someone, beat someone up, but they got a tap on the wrist and came back. But in the real world of the criminal justice system, that doesn't always happen. And these kids end up getting drop kicked into state prison. So let me ask you a question. At the elementary, middle, and high school level, you've got the school resource officer program. And I know in many ways you guys have been constrained, not just you, but around the country. What's your take on that? Is it something that we can do as a society in schools that makes it to where when these kids get out of school or drop out or whatever, they're just not thinking they're going to get away with everything? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, if you ask me generically of whether we need to revamp our discipline system, whether it's in the school or at the home, I would say yes. I would also tell you that I am a fan of second chances. I really am. We have recently worked with the state attorney on the juvenile civil citation program and increasing the number of situations that we can do a civil citation instead of making an arrest. As long as it's not a violent crime, as long as it's not a felony, and as long as the victim agrees with it, I'm a fan of the juvenile civil citations. In fact, we've taken a little look at our own policies, and the default law enforcement action is going to be a civil citation in those situations where it's possible. But we're talking about situations where it is a low level or a misdemeanor crime. So again, I don't know enough about, to be honest with you, the school district's policy on discipline. I know that we don't always get involved in a disciplinary process, as you can imagine. Many times they don't call law enforcement, even if they're on the campus. They will handle the discipline on their own. But if it's a criminal event, if it's a criminal act and there's a victim and they call law enforcement, we're going to do what we have to do. Quite frankly, we're going to make the arrest if the arrest is warranted. But our hope is that we don't have to arrest anyone from a school setting. I mean, hopefully that they can get the discipline that they need either at home, as we mentioned before, or they can get that discipline based on the policy of the school district itself.
Well, what I found was that, instead of attacking the root cause, they watered down the discipline. Well, maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe it got to a point where we stopped expelling students. We would give them disciplinary reassignments for, drug infractions. Bringing drugs to school for a long time was a zero tolerance thing, and that got watered down. So, I obviously, I'm all about second chances, but we had one individual that had 60 referrals, 60. And I mean, bullying, harassing, violence, and he just kept being brought back because, people, said we can't give up on him. But I was always very outspoken about that when I was on the board. And I think much to the chagrin of the administrative staff. But when I see it kind of transitioning into the community as students leave high school and then go out into the community and get involved in the drugs and get involved in dealing and then the violence that we see that accompanies that, I just can't help but wonder if they've been conditioned to get away with it. And maybe they're emboldened. And now the push seems to be to change institutions, not say resisting arrest is, a crime. All these things, I do worry about the future of law enforcement. Matter of fact, I was listening to a podcast. It was Michael Savage and Heather McDonald, who's just amazing. And they were talking about this and, and it kind of dovetails. Last year, I don't know if you saw it, but we had some folks come to our county commission meeting saying, you ought to defund the police. That didn't go well for them. I told the guy I thought it was crazy and he was ridiculous for bringing that up. But, you're the sheriff. Obviously, you know what it takes to fund the operations. I'm glad we've got a deal going and I think we're going to start the process of getting you another multi-year deal for your men. But what do you say to people who say, you should change the way you police and not question societal behavior of people that are not, living normal lives, living dysfunctionally? What do you say to those people?
Well, I think that what I say to those people is that they're judging every law enforcement agency by what they see on television.
Yes.
And that's just not the reality of the situation. We want to be as professional an agency as we possibly can. There are some police reforms that were just passed, and we had already adhered to every one of those. Some of the things they asked for, I think 8, they can't wait, these 8 things. And we had already adhered to all of those things as well. One of my campaign issues was getting the body cameras. We want to be transparent. I think that it's important for me to let the citizens of Escambia County know. And I ran on this. I told everyone that would listen to me, quite frankly, that we're going to make Escambia County safe. If you are committing a crime, if you're hurting someone, stabbing, cutting someone, you are going to go to jail. And that's evidenced by the video that we just seen. We have again, our men and women are out there being brave, and they're putting these murderers either in jail or they're shooting at them when they shoot back and they shoot at us. So I think that that's important for them to know. But I think you can have a little bit of everything. You can have and you can demand a professional law enforcement agency. And that's what we want to do. We are not perfect. We're humans, and the job that we do typically happens in a split second. And sometimes we make mistakes. I think that it's important for the residents of Escambia County to know that when we make a mistake, we're going to get better. We're going to address the mistake. We're going to address the employee. We're going to address the situation that caused it. We may not fire the employee, but we may retrain the employee. We may revamp our own training. Every time we get an in-car video or a body camera video now, we send that to training. And we look at it, says, is this something that needs addressed in training, or is this just an anomaly? Is this something that you cannot prepare for? Because we can train all we want to about active shooters, but how can you train for a military individual at NAS that just comes with hundreds of rounds and starts shooting in a secure facility like Pensacola Naval Air Station? You cannot possibly do that. So what you have to rely on is common sense. You have to rely on training. And I think that that's been evidenced by both the NAS shooting, and also the shooting that we had recently, but also a couple that we've had in the past. We had one of our deputies that responded to a call for help, ended up getting shot 3, 4, 5 times, once in the head, right after the NAS shooting. That you can't train for that. You can't possibly train for that. So I think that from my standpoint is to defund law enforcement is a ridiculous notion. And
Yes.
and I have been to hundreds, and Andy can probably attest to this as well. We've been to hundreds of neighborhood association meetings, and not a single person has come to me and said, we want fewer police officers or fewer deputies in my neighborhood.
Right.
And I think it's ridiculous. I think the fact that we're even having that discussion is ridiculous. And I'm not going to hear any of that nonsense.
Good, man. I'm so glad that you said that. That's fantastic. Yeah, that's essentially what I told this kid too. And anyway, what can you say about that? You nailed it. Hey, I have a question here from online. Can you speak to the success of the random patrols and the land deploying ATVs that have surprised people and assisted in the arrests in Century? Is that something that you can speak to, or is that?
Well, I mean, it is. We're working with all of our communities. We opened 2 precincts because I wanted every area of Escambia County to have that sense of a small town feel, where who's doing your policing, who to go to. You don't have to go to the sheriff. You can, but you don't have to. You can go right around the corner to the Molino precinct or the Canton precincts and talk to Lieutenant Nelson, and he will know that area. You can go up to the lieutenant up in Century, and we're working with Mayor Boutwell up there on some speeding right now. So in fact, I'm telling you now, if you're coming and going through Century, we're going to start writing some tickets, because the mayor of Century called me and said, "Hey, I need some help up here," and we wanted to give some warnings, to be quite honest, but we also have to write some citations at certain times, because there are fatalities taking place. So we have to have the traffic enforcement. So one of the avenues that one of the things we wanted to really do, and not just in Century, but we also, Andy can speak to this, but we're ordering a couple of trucks. One will go to the Perdido precinct to allow them to better help, at the beach over in the Perdido Key area. But we're also going to purchase a couple of Jeeps, because we have used a lot of our high water rescue vehicles, and we need this kind of an intermediate type of rescue vehicle. So we're going to get a couple of Jeeps for that purpose alone. And our 4-wheelers, our ATVs, we use those on the beach, but we also use them, as you said, up in Century. There are a lot of people that are riding their own ATVs, wreaking some havoc up there with the people that live up in Century. And there's a bit of a meth issue up there in Century that we're targeting as well. So soon you'll see a lot more enforcement, speed enforcement coming in and out of Century, but you'll also see the efforts on 4-wheelers, on ATVs. We have a bicycle unit that's funded through a grant, Justice Administration grant.
Yep.
We certainly appreciate the Board of County Commissioners, approving that as well, because these are very important to our neighborhoods, very important for people to see the Escambia County Sheriff's Office out there in their neighborhoods, and not just engaging, but very much enforcing the laws and putting people in jail that need to go to jail.
Well, and it always amazes me how fast an hour goes, but we're quickly running out of time here. Again, I want to express my appreciation for you, Sheriff Simmons, you, Commander Hobbs, Eric Gilmore, the Director of Public Safety, and of course, Wes Marino, our County Administrator. I want to thank you all for being here this morning. And I wanted to ask you, Sheriff Simmons, I know you have an active investigation. The father of Mr. Clardy came to the Board of County Commissioners meeting, and it was just heart-wrenching, to hear what he had to say. I think it ended up making national news. I had relatives out west that called and said they saw it. Is there anything you could say about the status? Are we gonna find the guy or guys who did this to him? And
Well, it's been a couple of weeks, and it's never soon enough for me. We always want to make as many, to solve as many crimes we possibly can as soon as we can. But we're not going to rush things. We're going to make sure that we have the probable cause. As you know, we can't just go out and because we think someone did it. Even if we think we know who did it, we have to be able to prove that. We have to have probable cause to get an affidavit, to get a warrant signed. So we have had a flood of calls, quite frankly. I cannot say that we haven't had calls in this situation. We've had hundreds of calls to our Crime Stoppers line. The problem is we don't have the calls yet that gives us the probable cause to make that arrest. Now we're doing a number of things. We're sending some things off for analysis. So it may take some time. But again, we cannot rush something like this. Our heart goes out to the Clardy family. I have heard nothing but good things about LD, and we're looking now as if he may not even have been the intended target. Everyone's asking me, what were they involved in anything that they shouldn't have been? Well, there's some things that I can say. There's some things that I cannot say.
Sure.
But my indication right now is that he may not have been the intended target, and I can tell you that it does not appear to be drug related. I mentioned earlier that drugs are seem to be the root of all evil with regards to violent crime, but this one does not seem to be drug related. So we're looking at a number of people. We do have an idea of a group of people that may be involved. We've talked to a couple of people, but we're still asking for the community's input. We still need that extra piece that'll put this puzzle together. We're never going to give up on this case, regardless of if it takes 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or even a year. We're not going to give up because people change their mind. People decide that they will give us information. We know that there are people that have information. We have heard people talking about this case specifically, but for some reason, even if we talk to them, we call them, they're reluctant to give us that information. So what's kind of odd about this whole thing is people will stand up and they'll talk about cooperation and justice, and yet some of these same people are not the ones that are willing to give us the information that they have. So that's just the reality of the situation. We have some great community leaders. I work very well with a number of them. They have great hearts, and I'm certainly not talking about everyone, but clearly someone has information that can help us. And clearly they're not forthcoming with that information.
that's the key. You need people to cooperate. And if there's some sort of we won't talk to police type mentality, a lot of these crimes probably won't get solved. And that's a shame. That's a crying shame. Final question for you, Sheriff. And this one was kind of interesting to me. And so it's for my own personal edification. I read about two young men in a car, and apparently someone rushed them and said, "You're not supposed to be in my neighborhood," and reached his hand in there. And then apparently a teen in the car shot the guy, killed him. Just curious about this. I mean, obviously he was being attacked, that'll get worked out in the court system, but he was a teen that had a gun. Was it legal for him to have that gun in the car? I mean, obviously I'm a Second Amendment guy, but what's your take on that?
Yeah, I'm a Second Amendment fan as well. I think that it's about reasonableness. If the actions you take is reasonable. In this situation, the report is that this gentleman who was not minding his own business went and confronted these two people who were sitting in the driveway, not doing anything, waiting to go fishing apparently. And then he hit the car, and then he reached into the window and grabbed the teen by the neck. And to me, that sounds reasonable. If you come to my car and you grab me by the neck, you're probably going to get shot. That's just the way it is. In Escambia County, you can defend yourself, and we're gonna. As long as I'm the sheriff, I'm going to defend someone's right to defend themselves. Now, it has to be reasonable. The thing I'm concerned about is there's a story about a porch pirate and someone might get shot. You cannot shoot someone for stealing a package from your porch.
Correct.
So everyone understands you cannot do that.
Right.
But there's been about 2 or 3 situations over the last year and a half where someone was shot and killed, and we did not charge the individual that shot him. It's because it's reasonable to think that their life was in danger, and they can take that reasonable action to defend themselves. And in this case, where we do not anticipate to charging the young man, And while you cannot buy a weapon, I don't know that there's a law where we're taking a look at that, but I don't think there's a law that says you can't have one in a car.
Interesting.
If as long as it's not carrying concealed, as long as you have to have a concealed license if you're over 21 and you can and you want to carry one on your person. But if it's in your car, like in your home, you can have a gun in your home and you can use it if you feel like your life or someone else's life is threatened. That's the way
I saw the one. Yeah, I saw the video you also released. It was from a Ring camera, the gentleman kicking the door, cussing and screaming, kicking it. And I think this technology is really going to assist you guys doing your job. And I think it's only going to get better. And I think it's really going to put an end to the days of the common criminal, because some of this technology is pretty amazing with facial recognition that's coming out. I just worry that the social justice warriors will try to make it illegal. They're already trying to do that in other places, other parts of the world. But what's your thoughts on technology? That was actually a final question I had for you. Is that going to help you do your job down the line?
Absolutely. The one you're talking about, we did a press conference because I wanted people to see and get the same feeling that I got when I watched it, that someone's life was in danger. He was threatening, kicking the door in, and there was an occupant of that house that ended up shooting and killing him, and we did not charge that person either. As I said before, you can defend yourself. But yeah, I think technology, we go through neighborhoods. We used to go through door to door and knock and see if anyone heard or seen anything. Now we go through asking that question, but we also ask if you've got a video camera. We did the same thing with the LD Clarity case. Then we're asking anyone, businesses or not, whether you're right next door or not, if you've seen any video from this time period. And we've got a lot of people that have helped us out, and we've been looking and reviewing that video for a long time now.
Well, Sheriff, that'll put a button on it. And I just want to say thank you very much. What great conversation this morning. I appreciate your opinions and the information that you've given. Commander Hobbs, thank you for telling us all about the neighborhood outreach. I look forward to coming to the Beulah Park event. Maybe you can give me some tips on how to keep them from blowing up the toilets with firecrackers. What do I do? If you guys could help with that, that would be great. Eric, thank you for being here, what you're doing in public safety. And of course, Wes, thank you for stepping into some difficult situations and a difficult job. And I think you have the board's full support. And to everyone else who joined us this morning, thanks for being here. We'll see you next month for an in-depth discussion about fire service in Escambia County. Looking forward to that. Everyone have a great rest of the week. And thanks again, Sheriff, for being here.